Do you long for one of these? There's nothing like a greenhouse to grow more of what you love over a longer season. Buying one is a big decision, but get it right and it will pay for itself. So join me as we take a look at how to pick the perfect greenhouse for your garden. Few gardeners regret going large on a greenhouse, so my advice is to go for the biggest one you can afford and have space for. Just make sure that you leave enough space right the way around the greenhouse so you can properly maintain it. Now, glass gets very dirty. Just look at mine, embarrassing, isn't it? But having this space means I can easily clean the panes to ensure enough light transmission inside, as well as replace any broken panes. There's room for a water barrel or two, and I've got plenty of space for hardening off my plants, acclimatising them from the cosseted environment inside the greenhouse, ready for planting outside. Of course, a bigger greenhouse is going to be more costly, but a decent footprint that gives enough space for raising seedlings, overwintering tender plants, as well as growing summer staples like tomatoes, well, that's going to be well worth the investment. Then there's the style and frame to consider. Freestanding greenhouses are the most popular, but lean-to greenhouses that make use of an existing wall can be fantastic, and that's because the wall will absorb heat during the day and then release it at night, which can be very handy early on in the season, kind of like having a free heat source. My wooden framed greenhouse is really beginning to show its age. Now you can see there's moss here where the water gathers and the wood itself is starting to rot a bit. You can see here I've tried to patch it up. But if you want a wooden greenhouse, well, I consider a really long-lasting wood like cedar, and you can also treat it regularly to make it last a bit longer. But I suspect I may well need to replace this greenhouse in a few years, or at least undergo extensive repairs. Now, perhaps a more durable and often cheaper alternative to wood is an aluminium framed greenhouse. Aluminium framed greenhouses can look the part too, so let's go and take a look at a few. For me, something this kind of size is ideal, 6 by 8 foot or 1.8 by 2.4 meters. This will give plenty of room for springtime seedlings before switching over to your summer crops. While something like this is ideal for a few containers that you can easily just step into and tend to. Many companies offer the option of a powder-coated coloured frame, turning what was once a utilitarian object into a thing of great beauty that would make a proud centrepiece to your garden. While most greenhouses are glazed right down to ground level, some have a bottom section of wood or brick. Now this obviously stops some of the light reaching lower down, but on the flip side, it will help to retain some heat. After size and style, the next thing to consider is whether you want glass or clear polycarbonate. Polycarbonate is strong and safe because it won't shatter, so that will offer peace of mind if you have kids running around or are in a very windy area. It's also quite strong and flexible, but it doesn't offer quite as much light transmission as glass. It's also prone to discolouring and scuffing, and over time will become quite brittle, so may need replacing sooner. Glass, on the other hand, is a lot clearer, so more light is going to be able to reach your precious plants, and it looks the business too. It does have its downsides. Traditional glass can shatter into dangerous shards, and overlapping panes can be a bit tricky to clean. The solution is modern tempered glass. Tempered glass is a little bit more expensive than traditional glass, but it comes in much bigger panes, which will make it so much easier to clean because there'll be fewer fiddlier joins. It's also safer because if it does break, despite being stronger, it'll shatter into really small pieces, which will pose a lot less danger than great big shards. You might think that greenhouses are all about trapping heat, and that's true to a point, but on a hot, sunny day, the heat can literally cook your plants. Stagnant air also encourages pests and diseases, so good air circulation is so important. Most greenhouses come with roof vents, but my top tip is to get one with good side vents as well to encourage really good and thorough air circulation. This greenhouse comes with louvered vents low down, which combined with the roof vent up above creates a bit of a chimney effect, drawing in air from here, then expelling it up there to keep the air moving. Even in late winter, a sunny day can cause temperatures inside the greenhouse to soar. Now, seedlings that you've got on the go may be quite happy with that, but you're likely to be encouraging soft, sappy growth that is then susceptible to sudden drops in temperature and disease. Plentiful ventilation will keep the air moving and encourage stockier, steadier, and ultimately stronger growth. In my opinion, the more openings, the better. I'd also look for automatic roof vent openers like this if you can. Now, these contain a wax-like substance that expands as it gets warmer, and as it does so, it pushes open the vent without you having to be involved. Perfect if you're a bit forgetful like me. Bear in mind that smaller greenhouses warm up but also cool down a lot faster than bigger greenhouses, though a small greenhouse is going to be a lot cheaper to heat. Heating a greenhouse can be a costly affair, so it's no surprise that fewer and fewer gardeners bother to heat theirs. I just start my seedlings off indoors and then move them out once it's warm enough to do so. I can always whip them back inside if a chilly night does threaten, or throw some row cover or fleece over them to keep them protected. But if you do want to heat your greenhouse, you'll want to retain as much heat as possible by, for example, tacking on bubble wrap insulation onto the walls for the colder months, or perhaps sectioning off a smaller area to heat that instead. Any greenhouse needs a firm, level surface on which to sit. Bare soil can potentially shift and settle, so opt instead for a skirt of concrete or slabs or bricks like this. Many greenhouses come with corner anchoring points that the corners anchor into to hold everything down, and anchoring down a greenhouse is a smart move in a windy location. Gravel or stone chips make a nice and cheap flooring option, and water will readily drain through. On the flip side though, if you get potting mix and plant material here, which you eventually will of course, it's quite hard to clear it up, and that could create grounds for weeds to pop up. A solid floor, on the other hand, for example of concrete or brick, will help to absorb heat during the day, but then releases at night, keeping the air immediately above it slightly warmer. It can also be wetted or damped down on hot days to help knock down the temperatures a bit, as well as raising humidity to help guard against common greenhouse pests like spider mite. I'd also consider whether you want greenhouse beds or whether you're just happy growing in pots and grow bags on the flooring surface. Personally, I prefer growing in beds in the ground because plants are far less likely to become water stressed or lack proper nutrition. If you're using our garden planner, by the way, you can add a greenhouse onto your plan and adjust it to the appropriate size, and it will even adjust your sowing and harvest dates automatically. We're back here in my greenhouse so I can show you a few of the accessories that make a greenhouse work for me. Now, one thing you'll definitely need is some sort of bench, usually called staging, to put your plants on. And by raising plants off the ground, you've then got space underneath for storing things like old pots, tools or potting mixes. Also, raising plants up off the ground, especially seedlings, will keep them a bit warmer because cold air tends to sink. Extra shelving will offer additional space for all those knickknacks, while tiered shelving can help you to pack even more in to the smallest of spaces. If you've got the space for a separate potting bench, then do make sure to include one because it will make your gardening in here so much easier. Now, I love the flexibility of my setup here. It's a little camping table which I can just pick up and move outside to work on a sunny day, for example. And my staging, this is half of it here, easily comes apart so I can plant my summer crops like these cucumbers here. These are almost done, and this will be going back ready for my spring seedlings. I like to keep a close eye on the temperature too, both for tender seedlings early on in the season and to monitor summer heat when it does really steam up. Now for this, I just use a simple maximum minimum thermometer to see what's going on. Some of these have remote displays so you can see what's going on inside or even on your phone if you are really keen. As well as adequate ventilation, greenhouse shading can help things from getting too hot on a sunny day. Internal blinds are undoubtedly convenient, if a little costly, but if you're trying to keep costs down, then simply painting on greenhouse shading early in the summer and then washing it off in autumn will work well too. Rainwater is best for plants, so it makes sense to use as much of it as you can. Check whether your greenhouse comes fitted with guttering and fit water barrels onto the ends of the downpipes to collect as much of it as you can. Greenhouses are the gardener's best friend, offering such flexibility and absolute joy. I'll catch you next time.